Hello and welcome back for another midweek magic event. This week's event is slow start, meaning the lands of the player who goes first enter the battlefield tapped on the first turn, essentially preventing them from playing out any cards. This does give significant advantage to the player who's going second, as not only do they have the opportunity to play out the first card, but they also get the additional card draw. The deck we're deciding to play today is this Technique mill deck, looking to utilize cards like Kitsune's Technique to mill half of our opponent's library rounded up, or Singularity Rupture as a board wipe that also mills half of our opponent's library, and then we want to come in with River Churn Monument and mill the remaining half. In order to set up the sneak on Kitsune's Technique, we have a handful of cheap enabler creatures, 2 copies of Flitterwing Nuisance. This 1 mana 2/2 with flying enters with a -1 counter on it, and then for 3 mana we can remove the counter, and then whenever a creature we control deals damage to a player or planeswalker this turn, we get to draw a card, helping us dig for our interaction. We also have 4 copies of Hydroponics Architect, a 1 mana 1/2 with flying, and whenever it attacks, a random land in our library perpetually becomes a basic island and gains whenever it enters. We get to draw a card, also helping us gain card advantage. Dream Beavers, a 1 mana 1/1 with flying, states that when it enters, each opponent loses 1 life and we gain 1 life, and then we get to scry, trying to improve our draws. And lastly, we're playing 2 copies of Mockingbird. This 1 mana X spell has flying, and when it enters, we can have it enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield with mana value less than or equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it, and the copy also gains flying. All of these creatures have flying, trying to allow them to have some evasiveness and get in unblocked, letting us use our sneak abilities, and they all offer some form of advantage, letting us dig and try and find our combo pieces. For interaction, we have 4 copies of Requiting Hex for removal, and 4 copies of Shredder's Technique, which can often be cast for its sneak cost. For card draw and selection, we have 2 copies of Consult the Star Charts, letting us look at the top X cards of our library, where X is the number of lands we control, and then we get to put 1 in our hand, and then for an additional 2 mana we can kick it and put 2 cards in our hand. Donatello's Technique, 3 mana sorcery that lets us draw 2 cards, or we could use Sneak and cast it for 1, and then 2 copies of Stock Up lets us look at 5 cards and put 2 of them into our hand. The mana base is quite simple: 2 island, 4 swamp, full play set of the dual lands, and 4 copies of Fabled Passage, which pair nicely with the Hydroponics Architect, as we can tutor up the island using the passage and get the card draw. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go up a couple islands here and go down a few swamps, as most of our cards are base blue. So that's the deck, and it's got a pretty simple strategy. The deck is pretty reliant on our 1/1 creatures being able to connect. However, if we're coming up against a creature removal heavy opponent, we are always able to hardcast our spells. They're just going to cost a little bit more, which is a major upside to this deck. Before we jump into the gameplay, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe the video. It really helps the channel. And without further ado, let's jump into the games. Opponent goes first here. We can lead on a Dream Beavers. We'll keep. Actually, Watery Grave. Great top deck here. And we don't need another monument. Up against the Gruul deck. Can only play 1 of our creatures out here. I think we'll play out the Architect with double Fabled Passage in hand. It should give us quite a bit of card advantage. We just have to hope our opponent doesn't run us over in the meantime. And a reach creature is going to be tough to get past. So a lot of ramp from our opponent. Shredder's Technique can destroy the Weaver. That would save our creature. So we'll attack in with both. They block the architect. We'll destroy it. And then we'll play out the Dream Beavers. Don't need the monument again. And another passage. Pass the turn. There's no need to crack this passage here, as next turn we'll have 4 mana, and they'll both come into play untapped. See what they find with Commune the Beavers. Bloom Tender is not the worst. They hit for 1. We'll take it. All right, we draw a Technique, which is great. We'll play out the Fabled Passage. And then I don't think we need the card advantage anymore from the Architect, so we'll leave it back to block. And we need to play out the monument here so that we have enough mana next turn to activate it. So just need to survive this one combat step. And looks like we should be able to. Take the block. And mill our opponent. Good game. This hand is good. We'll keep. Hopefully we get to play Kitsune's Technique on turn 2. So we'll shock ourselves. Ouch. Play out the Flitterwing. And Badgermole Cub from our opponent. Looks like they could be on a reanimation deck. I think here we'll actually take a turn off. We'll hex the Badgermole Cub. Play out a Beaver. And a land is fine. Attack down to 17. Pass the turn. And they have a Weaver here. And a Gene Pollinator. So we'll just get rid of the Weaver. Then we can hit for 2. Mockingbird. Is this going to copy one of our creatures? It is. Do they have another Mockingbird? Formidable Speaker. And Nature's Rhythm is a good card to discard. So here we should have everything that we need. We'll attack in with both. After no block, we'll use the Technique. Pick up our Dream Beavers. And then we'll use our Donatello's technique to pick up our Nuisance. Try and find our land drop for turn. If they hardcast the Riddler, this will draw 2 cards. No block. Land is good here. I'll play out the Dream Beavers, see what we're drawing into. Don't want another technique. We'll just hardcast this one. And we still don't find the 6th land that we're going to need to play and activate the monument in the same turn. Shocks in a Weaver. Attacks in with the Riddler. I think we'll take it for now, in case they have a way to pump the team later. And we miss again on our land. We'll try stock up. That works. Singularity is good. And probably just take the swamp here. Try using Shredder on the Riddler. Just really checking them for counter interaction. Don't know what card they might have had in hand there that they didn't want to play out. Looks like it was another Gene Pollinator. Would love them to tap out with the Rhythm here. Otherwise, we can just try a board wipe next turn. We'll see. They just get a Llanowar Elves, so I think the coast is clear. They have 1 mana, 1 card in hand. We'll play out the monument. And looks like that's going to do it. Good game. This hand is just okay. We don't have any cheap creatures to start off our chain. We do have some Hex for interaction with our opponent's small creatures. They start on a Pollinator and an Elf. I think we just take the Elf out here. And unfortunately, we've just drawn into lands. Scavenging Ooze is fine. We'll take 1. And with Shredder's technique in hand, I think we actually do take the Ooze out right now. We'll be able to interact with something like a Badger Mole Cub still. And it does take some pressure off of us since we are floundering a bit. They decide to eat their elves anyway. And we draw into another technique here. Sorcery speed on these, so we don't have any play for this turn cycle. Opponent passes without attacking. Still no creature. About 11 cards deep. And another Ooze from our opponent. We can use the technique on that next turn. And another land. See if they eat cards from our graveyard or theirs. Still going for theirs. Bit odd. They get the life gain, but they lose out on potential future Ooze value. Gene Pollinator. And a Urboride, so I think we fire off the Rupture next turn. Now we just need to find a monument. We already have double black, so we'll get another island. Opponent earthbends, hits us for 2. We can play out the Flitterwing and still hold up Consult the Star Charts. Weaver is a good chump blocker for the Flitterwing. And opponent attacks in. Do we trade it here? Probably. Well, no, because we want to kick Consult the Star Charts, so no blocks. And there's the monument, so that should be enough. Play out our land, play the monument, then mill the other half of our opponent's library. Pass the turn. Oh, attacked by accident. Oh well. Play out the beavers too then. Pass the turn. And that should be game. Okay, so there you have the deck. Unfortunately, pretty much all 3 of the games were against the same deck. The first 2 being straight Gruul, and the second one being a Gruul deck that was splashing some blue. That being said, we were pretty easily able to run over most of our opponents. The first game was a little close, but the second 2, we had no problem. The high number of removal spells that we have, including the Rupture, meant that against these creature decks, we weren't really in a lot of trouble. Notably, the Weaver did provide a nuisance as a great blocker for flying creatures. However, it was not enough to stop us. And I'm really happy that in the third game there, we were able to demonstrate that even without one of our cheap flying creatures, we were still able to win the game quite handedly just by hard casting the cards for their more expensive mana values. I've always been a huge fan of Mill, and I think this deck is positioned well for the event, and recommend you give it a try. As always, I'd like to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content.